Hello, people. Today I am going to cover a, a horrific story about a man named T.J. Tarsney. Now, he was a general and an advocate general that worked with Colorado to settle a strike. The strike was a miners' union. He was sent there by the governor of Colorado at the time to settle the dispute between them and the gold and the silver. The miners' strike in 1894. They went to, early in the day, General Brooks and was asked to go to a conference with his officials where they went over what the problem was at Cripple Creek, where there was a big mining strike. He was there for several days, and it appeared that things were a little bit better, but he was wrong. It was really, really dangerous. The miners were being not taken care of, and he just became convinced that he didn't need to be there any longer. So Tiny recommended that the troops be pulled out, even though 300 troops had been called to control the crowds. But when the strike persisted, the sheriff, in collusion with the miners, said that he could no longer control the situation. It was really bad, and the other General Waite ordered the forces of deputies to be disbanded. Now, the deputies were a bunch of hoodlums. That's what they called them. They were trouble, and they were out to get the general. The general was just in a lot of trouble. He didn't realize what kind of trouble he was in. He was in a lot of trouble. And the sheriff's force committed more violence in the town of Cripple Creek, and it kept on going and going until to the point where General Tony was extradited. He was kidnapped, and they took him several miles north of the city. They stripped him and tarred and feathered him. Now, the tar and feathering story is quite a horrible story, but the Tarsney or outrage. Now, this is the story of the adjutant general telling his story of how he was just totally humiliated, tarred and feathered, tortured. He did go on to live 8 more years, so he did live, but the torture was terrible. His eloquent plea for life finally respected by his cowardly kidnappers. They went to his home, and on June 24th, 1894, the excitement and indignation of the city and state over the dastardly outrage perpetrated on our adjutant General Tarsney, who was kidnapped by masked men about 1 o'clock yesterday morning, taken in a hack to a lonely place and tarred and feathered. Increasingly, rather than diminishing, and should the cowardly ruffians who did the deed be discovered, it is believed they will be extremely likely to have a lynching. So people were just devastated. Your representative called upon General Tarsney at his roadside last evening. During the day, physicians attended him and succeeded in removing every particle of the tar and feathers from his neck down. There still remains some trace an occasional abrasion on the skin. His face, however, is inflamed and blistered. And a farmer did her best. So this man was just trying to settle a strike, trying to take care of everything. And his payment was to be tarred and feathered. Now, his story, in his own words, is he was found himself surrounded by kidnappers in his office at the hotel. He was informed that he was going to be killed. So he thought he was going out and going to be the end of his life. He requested time to write his family's, but was informed that there was no time to waste. So they didn't care. He was roughly hustled into the hack and hurled away. When the opening country had been reached, the captors took him to the hack to a place greatly removed from the road. So in other words, he was taken far away. And the masked men, with cloaks and imprecations, formed a circle around him. And again, he was informed that he was going to be killed. So he wasn't given a chance to say anything to his wife, anything. He just thought he was going to be killed. At the suggestion of the leader, every man who felt so disposed told the general all they proposed to do with him, why they proposed to do it, and the opinions of him. He was accused of waging war against the mine owners, and that he was accused of issuing an order to the troops to fire upon the deputies from the 12-pounders. And finally, he was accused of indirectly being the cause of the death of the deputies who were killed during the Bull Hill campaign. For this, they proposed to kill him. Every humiliated option, the profanity and obscenity could suggest were given against him. So they're standing around in a circle. They're telling, I'm going to kill you, but these are the reasons. I don't care about your family. I don't care about anybody. We're here to kill you. So he's pleading for his life. And he was given no opportunity to speak for himself. Whenever he tried to speak, they talked over him without a thought other than he was going to be dead, but determined to make every use of his only weapon, argument and persuasion, that his life might be spared. So his family, he pleaded as to he had never done in the court. So he's pleading for his life. He rehearsed the entire situation during the time the troops and deputies were in the field. He explained to them that he was not in command of the troops, but General Brooks was in command, and under General Waits, the commander-in-chief. So he was trying to explain to them that he was not the only person. Now, he's scared, so, we got to understand that. It was true that he mingled with the miners, but he was not tried to shield the leaders of the withholding their names, for he knew the names only by newspaper and other common reports. When the order to fire the artillery upon the deputies was given, he was miles away from the scene. He knew that the men before him, but a few days, had stood at the graves of the comrades who had been killed, but he was not in command of the troops, and in no manner did he have anything to do with it. If he died, he as he must, but he had they had taken the wrong man. So it was concluded by the men that held a conference and decided that they would give the general 100 lashes. Now they used a leather strap. And when informed of this, we requested they shoot him rather than go through this, because he'd rather be dead than go through this. And then the leader, he decided that after talking to his friends, he came back with a pail of coal tar, a brush, and a rag, and a feather pillow. He was disrobed, the general, and the coat of tar and feathers was applied. When the dirty work was finished, he was daubed from head to foot and he had to put on his own clothing. He was then face down the road, and leader said to him, Roswell lies in that direction. Go down that way and don't turn back. Go straight ahead. Don't ever step foot in Colorado Springs or Cripple Creek again. So unexpectedly, life been given to the tortured man. So great had been the strain to which he had passed. He was severe with physical sufferings. I mean, the tar was hot, it's burning, the feathers are on him. He's in the middle of nowhere. He's, but his ears were still working to every sound, and he was walking, hoping that nobody was following him. I'm sure that he was very afraid, fearing the feuds that had tortured him, and repented of having allowed him to escape with his life. He left the road and concealed himself. After a painful interval, the horseman, General Tarsney, felt convinced that others were given to the crossroad, so he resumed his walk, continuing in the direction, and the tar was stiffening. No, it stiffens, and you've got these feathers. He decided to apply at least one farmhouse for help, but he was hatless and soiled clothing. His face was covered with tar and feathers. He feared he might frighten somebody, but finally his fatigue got the best of him, and he knocked on a farmer's door. The door was answered by a young girl who was terrified by what she saw. The man was in dire straits, and but the farmer's the father, said that we're going to go down to Palmer Lake, and with that, he gave the general a revolver, saying that if they come after us, we'll go down together. Trouble was feared at Palmer Lake, but the deputy stood his charge. Sympathetic people were found, and everything possible was done to relieve the man's suffering. I mean, by this time, he was in horrible shape. He was made as comfortable as they could. They sent out telegrams telling the family what they had found. They found a special train to bring him home. At about 4 o'clock, the train arrived with the eldest daughter, Susie, and Mrs. Blackwell, the wife of General Tarsney's lawyer. The train made all haste and went to Denver, and reached Denver at about 5 o'clock. The general was taken into the house where a physician was called. He appeared to be prostrated, but was sitting up in a reception room. Poor man couldn't even lay down because his tar was, now was hard as a rock. He became more animated, and he began to talk of the humiliated experience. His fearing was just coming over him. He was asked who he blamed for his suffering. He did not blame everybody. Because of the outrage in General Tarsney, he could scarcely repress himself. There was a $1,000 reward put out for anybody that could identify who had done to him. And then on the 24th, they had a huge meeting. The militiamen were highly indignant, and the miners were wild with rage because they said there's no more anarchists in Colorado Springs than ever were in Bull Hill. But they take satisfaction in the fact that the true character of the men who came here representing law and order have been proven by themselves. The sheriff does not bring the perpetrators to light. There's probability that the miners will take some measures to do so. There was a meeting of the committee, and they did some resolutions. It was just horrible. It's So what happened is that they did find the perpetrators. Some were charged, and he did go on to live until 1902. But it was a horrible, horrible story. And I just wanted you to know that, those kind of things went on all the time. Thank you.